Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily with Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily. I'm your host, Ray Flowers. Thanks for joining me today, folks. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well here on a Wednesday. Lots of baseball to talk about today. And just so everyone knows, I've had some people say, hey, why are you talking about other sports and all of that? We will obviously talk about other sports. We've done that. We've had Tuesdays for basketball, Thursdays for football, Fridays for NASCAR. We'll continue to sprinkle in the folks from the website, fantasyguru.com, that you all know and love. If you're looking for more football coverage, we've got that up the wazoo at fantasyguru.com. Available right now is the offseason franchise mode. You see it there on the screen. You get all the coverage of everything that happened through free agency, as well as everything leading up to the draft. So all the player breakdowns, all the player profiles, all that kind of stuff, all the guesstimates on how the draft is going to go, the rankings for the rookies, all that is available right now for just $19.99. Click on the subscribe tab at the top right corner. They changed it on me. It says subscribe now over at fantasyguru.com and get access to all of that goodness. Again, I'm Ray Flowers. You can find me on Twitter X, on Instagram, on Threads, at The Ray Flowers. I'm here with you every day, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a Wednesday, so I'll be on with Jeff Mans today. The Elite Sports Show is every day, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm on Wednesdays with Jeff. I'm also on Mondays with Jeff, so I'm on twice with him now. And I've got my show later tonight, which is Elite Sports Game Time. That's 8 to 10 Monday through Friday on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio with Justin Fensterman. That's a live update show. We talk about what's going on in the field and comment on it. We will not be on tomorrow night because of the draft, the NFL draft. Jeff Mans will be on. Will be part of the coverage with the crew over at SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. So no show tomorrow night, but we'll be there tonight. So 3 times to hear Ray Flowers today. Heaven help us. All right, what are we talking about today here on the show? We're talking about a lot of good things here, and here we go. We're talking with player performances, positives. Mike Trout, Matt Mervis is getting a chance to play with the Cubs now. What's going on with Evan Carter? How about Trevor Larnach doing some nice things? Riley Greene doing some good things. On the hill, Grayson Rodriguez struggles. Logan Gilbert gets it done again. Erik Fedde gets it done again. Kevin Gausman moving in the right direction. Kenta Maeda, same thing. Max Fried dominant last night. David Bednar and Bailey Falter of the Pirates. All right, looks like we got some good stuff there to talk about today for once. But, of course, we've got the bad stuff as well. Injuries to Merrill Kelly, Framber, Valdez, that's a positive news story. Taijuan Walker, positive news story. Scherzer's positive. Hayden Wesneski's not hurt, but he's replacing other injured guys, so that's a positive. And then we got updates on Jhoan, Duran, Nolan Jones, Lane Thomas, and DJ LeMahieu. Some of those updates good, some of them concerning, some of them outright bad. We'll also talk a little bit about the art of the trade. I had someone ask this question in the Discord over at fantasyguru.com, which if you get the baseball package, you get any package at fantasyguru.com. And what you get with that is you get access to Discord. So that's, whiz banger right there for you folks. You get access to all the crew, if you get the football package, you get the football Discord, baseball, you get the baseball, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, we're there to help you out, answer all your questions. There was a comment in there asking me about the trades. One of our users said, look, I have a terrible time having trades work. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. What are some thoughts? I'll give some thoughts here. We'll call it the art of the trade. I've done a podcast about this for years. I've done articles about this. I haven't done it here on Fantasy Sports Daily, I don't think. Maybe Kyle and I hit it up a couple months ago on quickly, but it's a nice refresher course if we did. We're in season now, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. As you can see there on the screen, FSD20 is the promo code. Get signed up there for what we're doing at fantasyguru.com. Find this show, Fantasy Sports Daily. Someone asked me this in Discord the other day. I don't know how it got missed. Elite Plus at the top of the page. Click on that at fantasyguru.com. It takes you to it. Fantasy Guru's got it stored there so you can see all the old shows. On YouTube, youtube.com/@Elite Plus Network. You can see all the old shows there. You can also see the shows hear the shows, on your podcast network. Pandora, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all that. Just type in Fantasy Sports Daily, and you should be able to hear the show in audio-only form. And don't forget, that was me, not a button that I hit for the noise, but you probably got that. I think the VIP Platinum Special is still going on, so here we go. 50% off everything we do if you become a platinum member at fantasyguru.com. And that gets you every sport, whether it's DFS, seasonal, or wagering, all of them, every sport across the board. Football, baseball, hockey, basketball, NHL, I already said that, PGA, MMA, racing, all of it, everything we do, all the Discord, all the articles, all the live streams, all the podcasts, everything in the platinum package at fantasyguru.com for 50% off. Use the promo code 50special. You never have to worry about, do you have access to this package, or do I get access to this? You get access to everything. The VIP platinum package at fantasyguru.com, 50 special is that sucker. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's going down here in the world of baseball. First off, Mike Trout. Mike Trout was filling the leadoff role, which is not where he's been. It's been a long time. It's been a couple years. I think the last time he did it was during COVID. Led off with a home run last night. It'll be very fascinating to see what the Angels do with their batting order. We've talked about it a lot. My hope was that Luis Rengifo would end up first or second. That hasn't happened. They had a long stretch of time where they went with Anthony Rendon, hoping his on-base percentage would work out. That didn't happen. Nolan Chenuel, who's got great plate discipline, hasn't hit at all. That hasn't happened. They're trying Mike Trout. We'll see if it was a one-off. We'll see. I mean, he hit a home run. So they're going to, that's a good start, if you will, here. But yeah, so everyone needs to understand that the situation with Mike Trout is a fluid one at the moment, but he's performing very well. The real question is, how long does this hold up before the injury strikes? I'm not trying to be pessimistic or negative. We just know it's going to happen. But he's powering the baseball like Mike Trout can. He is a dynamic Hall of Fame talent. We all know it. He's getting it done right now in the power department. And now maybe a chance to get it done from the leadoff spot. Obviously, that gets him a little bit extra plate appearance over the course of the season, which is a good thing. He's not going to run more because he's batting leadoff, so it doesn't really help there. It's a negative-ish. You'd really like to see someone getting on base in front of him so he can come up at least in that first inning with guys on base. Now, at the same time, if the person in front of him is never getting on base, what difference does it make? But I personally would like to see Mike try to hit second or third. We'll see. It's not a negative, though, to have him hitting leadoff. The situation with the Cubs is Cody Bellinger was injured and removed from the game last night after hitting an early home run. The reports we saw is that x-rays are running, everything seems okay. So they're not anticipating right now that Cody Bellinger is going to hit the injured list. Why am I going out of order and talking injury, and why is that important at this spot? Because the Cubs did make a lot of moves yesterday. And one of the moves they made was they called up Matt Mervis. Now, Michael Busch has established himself as the first baseman for this team. He has been fantastic in the early going. He's had some platoon situations, right? He's not always playing against lefties, but he's crushing right-handed pitching, and he's their first baseman of the future. And there's been some hinting that we're just going to let this kid play every day. So what happens with Matt Mervis? Well, Matt Mervis will come up and get a chance to fill the DH spot. Now, remember, Matt Mervis is now 26 years old. He was supposed to be the first baseman of the future for this team. When the Cubs in the offseason went out and signed Bellinger, that got a little murky with the Michael Busch situation that gets even murkier. And you look at what happened last year for Mervis, and he had a 531 OPS and 100 plate appearances, which is terrible. It's 100 plate appearances. Mike Trout sucked his first year too. Okay, so it's not the end of the world, but it's concerning that he had a 32% strikeout rate. So this year down at AAA, he started off very well. He's batting .288 with 5 home runs, an OPS of over 1,000, and a walk rate of about 15%, which got his on-base percentage over 400. So the bottom line is, 2 years ago at AAA, he had a 950 OPS. This year the number's 1,000. He's the year before that in 2022 at AA it was 966. Like he's mashing down on the farm. We got to see if he's a quad 4 guy or not. We got to give him an opportunity, and the Cubs are doing that now. So Matt Mervis is likely to see a good amount of work as the DH. If he struggles, for a substantial period of time, then we start getting into a little bit of a worry because Seiya Suzuki will be back at some point. And when Seiya Suzuki is back, if Mervis hasn't forced himself into this lineup, Michael Tauchman's going to see some work at the DH spot at that point in time. He and Mervis are both lefties. Tauchman doesn't have any options left. Mervis does. So it's another one of those scenarios where a youngster's got to go at the start, because if he doesn't go at the start, he may lose his opportunity to be on the team full time. So something to think about Matt Mervis, but fingers crossed that we get the Matt Mervis we were expecting, which we haven't really seen at the big league level to this point. Don't forget to leave your comments, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. We'll get to those at the end of the show as well. Evan Carter is, and here's the cautionary tale, right? And this is the prime example of what can happen to elite level talent at the start of their careers. It's why I write the history of the rookies at the start of the season. It's why I tell everyone, be careful building around rookies. I had someone yesterday ask me in Discord, did they drop Wyatt Langford? Like, this is what we got. We end up in a scenario where a lot of youngsters come through every season. Oftentimes, the youngsters that come through aren't the guys we expect to. Jackson Holliday's been brutal to start here. Evan Carter, we're talking about now, who looked terrific last season, looked fantastic in the playoffs, has looked like butt thus far. Okay, he's driven the ball deep 3 times, and he scored 15 runs in 21 games. So this is, it's not out of control scenario here. But he's hitting 200, which stinks. His on-base percentage of 307, which was always supposed to be his calling card, is not even league average. He's not driving the baseball. Slugging percentages in the 300s. And overall, he's got a 693 OPS. Is there catastrophe here? No. He's still got, a 0.5 walk-to-strikeout ratio, which ain't bad. He's still got the speed. He's still got the power. Everything is still there for him to be a strong performer this season. But the fact is he's just not hitting the baseball very well. Exit velocity is way down. Barrel rate's way down. Hard hit rate's way down from last year. All 3 of those numbers are below the league average, and we're seeing the results in that. Is it panic time with Evan Carter? No, it's been 21 games. And you look at it, the totality of his career to this point, he's got a 356 on base percentage. Like, that's good, right? 8 home runs and 4 steals in 44 games is basically a 25-15 pace. That'll work, right? Struggling a little bit right now, and this is, again, what happens to young players. It's very normal for this to happen. It's very likely that Carter will improve as the season goes on. He's much better than this, but we run the issue here of they're starting to be at some point in the near future. If there continue to be struggles, the Rangers may be making some moves here, right? Maybe limiting his plate appearances a little bit, maybe looking at the matchups a little bit more directly. Not at that point yet, but something to think about with Evan Carter, who has started slowly. Trevor Larnach was given an opportunity to play with the Twins because the fact is that Matt Wallner just didn't hit. And it wasn't that he wasn't producing. He wasn't hitting the baseball. His strikeout rate was phenomenal. So Trevor Larnach was called up, and in a week's time here, Trevor Larnach is hitting 350 with a couple of home runs, 6 RBIs in 7 games. There is no doubt that Trevor Larnach has got power. I think that most talent evaluators have always thought that Larnach could hit 30 home runs at the big league level. I think that's certainly who he could be. He's 6'4", 225, got the power stroke from the left side. That's who he could be. He's never really done enough to consistently be part of the Twins lineup. Like, you look at him, he's at 717 plate appearances, 22 home runs, 92 RBIs, 82 runs scored. Those aren't good numbers, but they're not bad numbers. They're just bleh numbers. But the problem really has been he's hitting 226 with a 318 on base percentage and a 33% strikeout rate. That's just not good enough. Like, all those numbers are very average. So if he's that hitter, we need that slugging percentage to be 496. It's 396. We need the isolated power mark, which I'll be writing today about at fantasyguru.com. So look for that article later today. We need the isolated power mark to be 225. It's 170. So the problem for Larnach is not his overall game. That is very much what was expected. The problem is that he hasn't driven the baseball with as much authority as was expected. And, we know this style of game can play in the major leagues. If you're hitting 225 with a 310 on base percentage, you need to be hitting 29 home runs, not 19. The early returns are very positive, and I think the biggest excitement with the early returns with Trevor Larnach is the 21% strikeout rate. Now, again, it's 24 plate appearances. I don't think that's who he is. I don't think we should be getting overly excited about this 7-game run, but he is in a nice groove right now. He certainly has a chance to establish himself as part of the daily lineup. The Twins are really struggling as a group offensively. If he gets off to this hot start and it becomes 2 or 3 weeks here, he might just get 450, 500 plate appearances this year because they need someone to produce, and maybe they'll take the 230 with the 28 home runs. So just want to throw him out there, a limited player in certain respects, but someone who has the opportunity to grab a role with his team. This next guy's hitting 247, and that's, he's not very good. But when you look beyond the 247, you see a 402 on base percentage. See a 506 slugging percentage. you see a 259 isolated power mark and an 18% barrel rate, you should then start to get excited. And you should be starting to get excited about the leadoff hitter of the Tigers, Riley Greene. Now, Riley Greene went deep twice last night. Again, he's done an excellent job of controlling the strike zone. 20% walk rate is huge. It's led to that 400 on base percentage. He's filling the role of leadoff hitter superbly. He now has 5 home runs on the season. He hasn't run, and he's not likely to be a big steal guy. But as we said before the season began, Riley Greene could hit 25 home runs, steal 10 bases, and go 80-80. Like, that was kind of where we're hoping he'd be. And right now, he's on pace to better that. He's on pace to hit 30 home runs. He's on pace to score 130 runs. Now, again, let's be reasonable here. But the fact of the matter is Riley Greene has done almost everything well this season, which is not a surprise. The last 2 years, he's been very good. He just hasn't had the plate appearances to get there. Last year being the injury situation, he was solid as a rookie, took a step in year 2 last season before the injury hit. Now this year, he's kind of carrying that over. So there's a lot to like with Riley Greene, and this hot start. Batting leadoff gets him the extra plate appearances. And if he can maintain a 350-ish on base percentage, it was 349 last year, 350-ish on base percentage batting leadoff, he's got a legitimate chance to blow past expectations of 75, 80 runs. He could score up to 100 runs this year, which is really impressive for the guy. Off to that good start. Love seeing that control of the strike zone from Riley Greene. And again, he hit those 2 home runs last night. Let's talk about some pitchers. Grayson Rodriguez, Grayson Rodriguez did not get it done last night. And our noted Philly expert, Phil Backert, was asked in our chat that we have, Ted Schuster, myself, Phil, Sandro Anello, basically the SiriusXM crew, what the hell's going on with Grayson Rodriguez? And the fact is that Grayson Rodriguez didn't get it done last night because his fastball control was off. He was all over the place with his fastball. And even when you're facing an Angels team that's not impressive, you can't locate your pitches. He gave up 7 runs last night, 11 hits in 4 1/3 innings. 10 of the 14 balls put in play with him are technically hard hits. So he did not locate his pitch as well last night, and he paid the price. And that flies the area up to 4.5. Overall, Grayson Rodriguez has pitched very well. We're not going to down him for one effort, but it was disappointing. It was certainly a disappointing effort. Very reasonable to expect him to turn this around next time out, but we'll have to watch and see. He's a young pitcher still finding himself. I think that, in the case of Rodriguez, he was expected to be a star. He struggled right at the hop, that he really picked it up in the second half last year. Looked really good to start the year. And you think to yourself, well, he's never going to have a bad outing anymore. Like, that's gone. He's now a dominant guy. Most of these guys have bad outings at some point, right? Even the best. It was a rough outing. Again, fastball control is the big issue. We'll see him next time out. I don't anticipate there being any carryover here, but we'll have to watch. I would still be starting him next time out. It's not a panic scenario. It's just a bad effort. And, at least it was 7 runs in 4 1/3 innings, and it wasn't 7 runs in 2 1/3 innings. Not that helps anyone in a head-to-head setup, I know, but, in the roto scenario, at least, like there's catastrophic outings and then there's really bad outings. That wasn't a catastrophic outing from Rodriguez. That was just a bad outing. And again, I don't think there's any lasting or should be any lasting impact from that. Logan Gilbert, wow. And, Logan Gilbert is one of my favorites. I think he's one of everyone's favorites. I'm not the only person on that island by any means, but he's just really good. And we saw it yet again last night against Texas. 6 2/3 shutout innings against the Rangers. Look at this. He has thrown 5 games this season. In 6 of 5 games, that'd be pretty hard to do. Yeah, that'd be pretty hard to do. How about 4 of 5 games, right? In 4 or 5 games, he's thrown at least 6 2/3 innings, which in the modern day makes him an Iron Man. 4 of the 5 outings, at least 6 2/3 innings, and on all of those outings, 1 or 0 earned runs. He had 1 rough outing against Milwaukee where he gave up 4 runs and 5 2/3. 4 of his 5 outings have not just been quality starts; they've been pretty much dominant efforts. And here we are 5 outings through. He's, walked 8 guys and he's given up 7 runs. The only issue he's had to date is the home run. And 3 of the 4 home runs he allowed were in that one game against Milwaukee. So really, he had one little minor hiccup, which again, if that's the worst outing you ever have, we just talked about Grayson Rodriguez. This was not even half as bad. That'll work. But for those 5 outings, he's not just been good. He's not just giving you a quality start. He's been dominant. And, there's been some bumps and bruises with the starting staff of the Rays. Kirby's kind of been a little rough. Castillo's been a little bit rough. Gilbert's been the guiding force right now, but that could be one of the best starting pitching rotations in baseball. Brian Woo's hopeful of returning at some point in early to mid-May. We talked about him on the show yesterday, coming back from the elbow issue. Things are starting to get interesting with the Mariners and that pitching staff, and right at the center of that is Logan Gilbert, who had another fantastic outing last night. When you pitch in the bigs, you're not very good. One of the moves some of these players choose to make is to go across the ocean. And sometimes they move across the seas and things go really well and they come back and things are different here. Erik Fedde of the White Sox made that decision. He went to the KBO last year. And he didn't just go to the KBO last year. He went to the KBO last year and was dominant. He made 30 starts and threw 180 innings. In 180 innings, he had 209 strikeouts, had a .95 whip, had an ERA of 2, and went 20-6. Like, whatever league you're playing in that's a professional league, that's fantastic work. He comes back to the States this season. I think everyone looked at what he did with the Nationals, and you look at what he did with the KBO last year, and you think, okay, let's see what you got, kid. Like, let's see how much there's carryover. We're 5 starts in, and his ERA is 2.7, and his whip is 1.4. And that strong start for Fedde was punctuated last night by an 11 strikeout effort against the Twins, his best outing of the season, and a career best strikeout total for a game. Now, it was against the Twins, and the Twins, as we've talked about a lot in the Cash Game Breakdown over at fantasyguru.com and here on the show a little bit too, the Twins just aren't in sync right now. They've got injuries on offense. They've got poor performers on offense. They're just not going right now. It's just not happening, right? So having a solid effort against the Twins is kind of expected if you're going to be an upper-end pitcher. 11 strikeouts and no walks is different. That's an elite level performance. That's not just you got through and you got a quality start. This is a dominant effort. And that's now 2 consecutive games where he's allowed a total of 1 run. He's had 2 games where he's allowed double-digit home runs, which is obviously not close to being ideal. And, you know, one of the reasons that we see that number is because his home run to fly ball ratio is 20%. It's elevated. Probably not going to stay there, but his career mark is 18%. So he's not a fly ball guy. In fact, his fly ball rate is routinely league average or a little bit below it. But he's had a propensity to, have that home run to fly ball ratio. The lowest he's ever been is 14%, which is above the league average. So he seems to have, he seems to be a little less than fortunate, if you will, with that. So maybe the home run's always part of his game. Again, the early returns with the strikeout, boosted by last night, of course, are very positive, a 27% strikeout rate. At the same time, let's be realistic about this. Though he had all those strikeouts last night, we all want to get excited about Erik Fedde. His swinging strike rate right now is 8.3%. That's a bad number. That's just a bad number. His CSW of 26.5% is below the average. So 2 key indicators, swinging strike rate and CSW, are both well below the league average. Those don't support a 27% strikeout rate. His history doesn't support a 27% strikeout rate either. So I'm thinking he's over his skis on the strikeout mark. But I've been very impressed thus far. I think overall he's been very solid. I also think that he's been fortunate. You look at the indicators, his expected ERA is 3.8, which is a full run above his actual ERA. His SIERA is 3.4. His xFIP is 3.3. So he's a little over his skis here. But maybe the biggest issue is he pitches for the White Sox. And though he's been this good through 5 starts, he's got 1 victory. How is he going to get victories with this offense supporting him? So if you're in a traditional setup, Erik Fedde might be a useful pitcher. Is he going to win 10 games? The White Sox suck. So that's kind of a breakdown of Erik Fedde and things to think about with him. Kevin Gausman is more on the plus side than the negative side, if that makes sense. We're at the point where he took on the Royals last night, had a quality start. None of the runs he allowed were earned, so that helps you in the fantasy space, of course. But he allowed 3 runs, 7 hits, only had 2 strikeouts. And that's the thing with him. It was a good effort. It was a quality start. It's the second effort in a row where he's allowed 3 or fewer runs. In fact, he's allowed 4 runs and 2 starts, only 1 of them earned. Also has 8 strikeouts in 11 2/3 innings. He's made 5 starts this season, and he doesn't have a single start of 7 strikeouts. And we're talking about Gausman at this point having a K rate of 18.6%. And you say to yourself, well, Ray, that's not a good number. No, it's not a good number. It's below the league average of 23%. The last 4 years, Gausman's strikeout rate is 29.8%. It's currently 18.6%. That's not a dip. That's a catastrophic fall. Okay. And that's a concern with Kevin Gausman. We keep talking about his velocity numbers and all that, and his velocity's down a little bit. It's still down about a mile per hour from last year. Overall, it's been a little bit better of late. Remember, he had that shoulder issue early on that he dealt with. Again, more positive than negative at the moment, but he's not back to being an SP1 at this point in time. He also faces the Dodgers in his next outing, and this is a stiff test. Okay, a very stiff test against the Dodgers. I know the Dodgers were shut out for 5 1/3 innings last night by Corbin Carroll in one of the most miraculous pitching performances of the history of the world. But that's a tough lineup you don't want to face, obviously. Gausman against the Dodgers is going to be a real telling point. I think that if your concern is, will Gausman be usable? I think that concern is gone. I think he'll be usable. If your question is he going to return to being elite? I think that question is still unanswered. And I'm not saying that one outing against the Dodgers will answer that question for us, but it'll go a long way to it, because Kevin Gausman with 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings is vastly different than 10.5 per 9 innings. I mean, just think about that. Over the course of that's 50 strikeouts over the course of a season. It's a huge difference. More positive than negative, but a wonky April, I think it's fair to say, for Kevin Gausman. Kenta Maeda, talk about a wonky April. Kenta Maeda has been added and dropped. I know there's tons of questions over at fantasyguru.com what to do with him. 5 shutout innings last night against the Rays. And his velocity was up last night. He threw a sinker last night, which hadn't been something he'd featured to this point. He faces a Cardinals team next that isn't exactly an offensive juggernaut at this point. I've maintained the faith with Kenta Maeda. I have him in multiple leagues. I'm not saying I've started him every time out there, right? But I've maintained the faith and I haven't dropped him. If you're in a shallow league, you're in a shallow league. If you're in a head-to-head league, you roll through pitchers. I get it. But if you're in a 12-team mixed roto, if you're in a 14, 15-team mixed roto, I just don't think Kenta Maeda should be on the waiver wire. He's always found a way to have success. The outing last night was encouraging against the Rays. And I think that when it's all said and done, you'll get 135 successful innings out of him. Not sexy, dominant stuff, but successful. And in this era, 130 successful innings is really important to get. Max Fried threw a Maddox last night. He took on a Marlins team that's not very good. That's not in a groove by any means offensively. And he threw 92 pitches to complete that game, the shutout against the Marlins. I mean, boom, there you go. And we had a lot of talk about Max Fried here on the show and articles and Discord. Hopefully everyone that drafted him held on. Hopefully people went out and made offers to acquire Max Fried, because though his numbers overall still aren't very good, that last night is Max Fried. Like, he's really good. The question I've always had with Max Fried isn't, will he be effective? The question was always, will he make 28 starts? Like that, it's the health piece to me that's been the question with Max Fried, not the performance piece. So that was the 5th complete game of his career. It's the 4th time he's thrown a shutout. He'll take on the Mariners next time out. Try to keep this ball rolling, but he was excellent last night. And it's a reminder to everyone that Max Fried is just a very good pitcher who's had a rough start to the season. A couple of guys finally with the Pirates before we start talking about some injury news. And remember, we're going to have a discussion about the trade, how to do trades here in a few minutes. David Bednar has had a rough season. Talk about a guy having a rough April. David Bednar has been all over the place. He's losing games, blowing saves, poor performances, all of that. He's now had 3 consecutive scoreless performances. He was up to 97 miles an hour on his fastball last night. He looks like he has fixed whatever ailed him. Okay, so same thing as Max Fried. It's been ugly with David Bednar and hasn't been up to levels of expectation. He had a great season last year that he's unlikely to ever repeat. If you look at the ratios and everything, it's unlikely to ever be that good again. But it's not to say he can't save 30 games and be an effective reliever. I still think that's the case. I think we've seen that the last week or so here as he's rounded into form. The bumpy start seems to be in the rear view. Maybe it was health related. Maybe it was just pitch location, that kind of stuff. But he looks much better right now. Now his teammate, Bailey Falter, allowed 1 run and 3 hits against the Brewers. And that gets your attention. And he threw 71% fastballs last night. That gets your attention too, because the pitch is only 91, 92 miles an hour. It's not high velocity, okay, with Bailey Falter. And someone asked me about him in Discord, which is totally valid because he's had a couple of strong outings here. What I see with Falter is we have a guy who is more on the I need to be pitching scale than I can be on the stuff scale, if that makes sense, right? He's someone that struggled with command at times. The stuff isn't overpowering. You look at his production in the big leagues, and it's, 65 outings and it's 225 innings over 4 years. He's not a strikeout guy. He's more of a pitch to contact guy. And we talk a lot about this profile. And the pitch to contact guys are tough to trust. They're especially tough to trust when they haven't done it before, right? Marcus Stroman's going to pitch to contact. We know what Marcus Stroman's going to do, right? Another advantage that a guy like Marcus Stroman has in opposition to Falter is he gets ground balls. The ground ball rate of Falter for his career is 36%. It's his fly ball rate's 42%. He tilts toward the fly ball. When you're a pitch to contact player that tilts toward the fly ball, that's not good. That's obviously the wrong combination. And we've seen it reflected in the home runs in his career. 1.7 home runs per 9 innings. That's not a good number. That's always going to artificially inflate your ERA. And though, again, he's another one of these guys that looks really good on the surface, both Sierra and XFIP are saying that ERA should be at least a half a run higher than that. We don't know what the longevity piece is with Falter, because Falter is not someone that's been racking up huge innings marks. He threw about 130 innings last year, if you can include all his work in the minors and the majors and all that. But you can see that he's been all over the place. He's bouncing around. Bottom line with Falter, he's in a good groove. You want to pick up Falter and give it a shot here short term. Okay. Faces the Giants on Sunday. The Giants have not been an impressive offense. You want to start him in that matchup. Okay. I think in the case of Falter, I'm okay at the moment starting him in matchups which are conducive to success. I am not just randomly starting him against everyone, and I'm not expecting the current ratios to be something that will continue with him. And in fact, you look at a 173 batting average in a balls in play. The number's 250 if he does nothing, right? Maybe the number's 270. Maybe it's 310 by the time the season's over. Everything has gone well for him to this point, but I can't see it continuing for Bailey Falter. Okay, let's talk about some injuries before we talk about the trade market. You can see there on the screen, by the way, if you're not watching it, if you get the MLB wagering or the MLB DFS package, you get the all-in package on top of that for free. So get the MLB DFS, the MLB wagering, and you get NBA, NHL, PGA, MMA, soccer, and racing for free. It's a pretty darn good deal over at fantasyguru.com. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. Merrill Kelly is the first guy to talk about with the injury situation here in Major League Baseball. And yikers, Merrill Kelly's got a shoulder issue. He's been placed on the injured list. It's being called the strain. It's not going to need surgery, which is great news. But the next step here is unknown at this point in time. Is he going to miss 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks? We just don't know with Merrill Kelly. Really bad news, because Merrill Kelly has quietly become not an upper end pitcher, but kind of on that next level, right? Takes the ball 30 times, throws 180 innings, gives you 180 strikeouts. The ratios are good. He's just been a really consistent pitcher the last handful of years. Was doing a lot of good things this year, then the injury. So we'll see. We don't have any information right now. They're going to go through this. I don't know what to tell you. Kelly had the profile of a guy that wasn't going to have this situation, and here we go. It's just baseball. It's just baseball in this day and age, and I wish it was different, but it's what we got. We'll continue to monitor the information there. Hopefully we get good news. We just don't know at this moment in time, but he has been at least placed on the injured list, so you can make a roster move there. Framber Valdez, when he went down with his arm issue, we were all fearing the worst. It was when everyone was going down with arm issues and everyone was having Tommy John surgery. The team quickly said, we don't think this is a significant injury to his arm. Looks like they were telling the truth. Joe Espada, the manager of the Astros, said that Framber Valdez could start this weekend in Mexico City, which is great news. I have Valdez on multiple teams. You probably have Valdez on multiple teams. Excellent news that they're going to let him get it back out there this quickly. Clearly, there is no long-term concern with him. The negative is, and I'll say it right now, I've already written it, but I'll say it right now, do not start any pitchers in Mexico City. Mexico City is like they're down the street playing at the local major league, the minor league. What am I trying to say? Little League. Jeez, Ray. I'm bad in the morning. They're down at the local Little League park hitting baseballs. There's like an average of 97 runs scored per game in games in Mexico City. Slightly exaggerating, but that is as offensive. You think Coors Field? Think Coors Field back in the Big Street Bombers days when it was Galarraga and Bichette and those guys back then. That's how Mexico City plays. So I'm not touching Framber Valdez in his first start off the injury list in Mexico City. I don't think you should be either. And again, I don't think you should be starting anyone in that series this weekend on the hill. The batters, hell yeah. The pitchers, no. But great news overall with Framber Valdez. Taijuan Walker is very likely to make that return from his shoulder injury to start on Sunday. As we have talked about on this show repeatedly, it looks like Spencer Turnbull is going to be the guy out of the rotation for the Phillies. Hopefully everyone's prepared for that. I've written and talked about that repeatedly. So that seems to be what the case is. We'll see. Obviously, other injuries can pop up. Obviously, Taijuan Walker's still got to perform, and he's got to prove he's healthy too to even lock down a spot in the rotation. But he's going to get that opportunity starting this weekend, it appears, and that'll be a loss for Spencer Turnbull. Max Scherzer, here we go, Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer is going to have a minor league rehab assignment at AAA Larnach starting today. Boom! Max Scherzer. We've talked about Scherzer. We had the update last week when we got the news that he might actually return, not in late June, not in early June, but potentially in early May. He's trending toward that right now. He's making that start today. We'll see how it goes. We'll get all the readings and all that. I'm sure we'll be talking about it on the show here tomorrow. But here we go. Max Scherzer is starting to ramp things up, and we're hoping to see him on a major league field soon in 2024. I mentioned the Cubs earlier, bringing up Matt Mervis. They did a bunch of things yesterday. They put Kyle Hendricks on the injured list with a lower back situation. They put Drew Smyly on the injured list with a right hip situation. They called up Matt Mervis. And they also called up Hayden Wesneski. And for those of you that were with us at fantasyguru.com last year, you'll remember that he wasn't the selection. The selection was Justin Steele for the breakout pitcher of the year. But Hayden Wesneski was in the article. We talked about him. I really like Hayden Wesneski's skill set. It's still unclear if he's going to really fill the Drew Smyly role or if he's going to fill the Kyle Hendricks role. If he ends up in this rotation and gets the moss gathers, the Rolling Stone gathers no moss. There we go. I was going to say it wrong. That stone starts rolling for Wesneski. He could be a starting pitcher for this team. And if he's a starting pitcher for this team, he's going to be someone we're going to want. If he's throwing long relief or whatever, like last year, right, in the mixed league, it doesn't do you much. But if he is able to garner a spot in this rotation, that's a guy that I'm interested in. So we'll have to watch and see how that develops. Put him on your watch list. I'm not saying you got to add him today, especially in thinner leagues, but put Wesneski on your watch list. He's someone we could be talking about in a couple of weeks. Jhoan Duran came out yesterday with his first minor league rehab outing at AAA, and unfortunately kind of pitched like poo. He allowed a couple of runs, did strike out 3, right? But he allowed 4 hits in his return from the oblique. He only threw 15 of 27 pitches for strikes, and he averaged 98 miles an hour. Now, this is a guy who averages over 100. So the velocity was down. The results were down. Minor league guys shouldn't be scoring 2 runs and getting 4 hits off Jhoan Duran. And only 15 of 27 pitches were strikes. So clearly there was some rust there yesterday. We're hoping he's back by, potentially the weekend or early next week. Obviously, he's going to have to go out again and look better in the minors. He'll probably get out there in a day or two and give it a go. We'll follow that. That effort will tell us most likely whether the next outing is going to be in the big leagues or not. Healthy, out there throwing good news. Rough first outing, not unexpected. And it was, 27 pitches. It wasn't like he went deep into a game. Nolan Jones, who we talked about on the show yesterday in detail. If you missed that, it was episode 126, I believe. Broke his hitless streak last night, 0-for-26. Got a base hit. But he was removed from the game with back stiffness. As of right now, we're hearing just back stiffness. We're not hearing injured list or anything like that. Something to monitor, something to think about with him. Maybe this is partly why he struggled, the back. I've talked about my back all the time. I get it. But things just aren't going right for Nolan Jones. And let's hope that this is not the start of one of those years. Kind of got that feel a little bit right now, but it's still plenty early enough for him to turn things around. So I'm going to try to stay positive, which is hard for me. I'm going to try to stay positive. We'll monitor the back thing. Hopefully it's minor, like they said. 2 more health situations to discuss. First off, Lane Thomas. Does anyone realize Lane Thomas has 11 steals? 11. Like, we're all focused on, Victor Scott and Esther Ruiz. Lane Thomas got 11 steals. Well, Lane Thomas has got a knee issue. He got injured on Tuesday against the Dodgers. He twisted his leg on a stolen base attempt. They're going to do an MRI. We don't have an update yet. We'll get one today, I'm sure, before the game today. But let's hope it's day to day because, again, his bat was excellent last season overall. He's running like mad this season to start the year. But now he's getting that MRI on that left knee. Fingers crossed. I have Lane Thomas in Tout Wars. I think that's the only league I have him in. But I have him in Tout Wars. I'm sure you have him as well. And he's been a boon of fantasy production here with those 11 steals in the early going. Fingers crossed that his knee is okay. And then finally, DJ LeMahieu, who's been out with a foot issue, was on a minor league rehab assignment and was removed from the game with the foot issue. So he played 1 inning and came out of the game. Now, I mean, he's going to be set back for 2 or 3 days? Is this going to be 2 or 3 weeks? I don't know, but this is when you're on a minor league rehab assignment and you play 1 inning coming back from the injury that caused you to need the minor league rehab assignment, right? We're in bad spot here with DJ LeMahieu. So if you've been counting or waiting on DJ LeMahieu, that counting is not going to pay off soon. The waiting is going to have to continue. And we'll see if this is, again, a couple of day thing, or if this is, we got to shut you down, kid, and wait a couple of weeks. So not good news. Good news for Oswaldo Cabrera, but not good news for DJ LeMahieu. So that's kind of a rundown of where we're at with the performances and the injuries. Someone asked me in Discord, though, to talk about the trade market and said, look, Ray, I'd love to make a trade, but I never seem to be able to work it out. What are some thoughts? I think the number one issue that people run into when they're making a trade is that they're focused 100% on what they need. So someone will say, look, I want to get an outfielder. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to go get Mike Trout. Okay, you can improve your outfield without getting Mike Trout, right? Maybe let's get Taylor Ward, right? Like we can improve. So that's one problem people make in the trade market is when they want to improve their team, they always go for the top end guy. I'm sure outfielder 42 is going to improve your outfield if you have outfield problems, right? So you don't always have to shoot for the top guy. Secondly, people will say to themselves, I need to improve my outfield. I'm going to get Mike Trout. So they go and make a trade offer for Mike Trout. You have to look at the other team. How is the other team built? How is the other team constructed? Maybe the other team drafted Esteury Ruiz and they just don't know what they're getting out of him. Maybe the other team has Lane Thomas on him and they just hurt his knee and they're not sure what that's going to mean. Maybe they've also got Nolan Jones, who's been in the slump and's got a back issue now. They can't afford to trade you Mike Trout, right? So that's probably the biggest issue I see when people try to make trades is you identify the player you want and go to get him from the other team without looking at the other team. If you're trying to get Mike Trout, you have to be getting Mike Trout from a team that has an excess of outfielders. Because they can't, if their outfield, like I said, if they've got injuries, they can't trade you Mike Trout. Maybe in 3 months, if their outfield's healthy, sure. Trout will probably be injured by then. Oh, don't say it, right? Knock on wood. But you get the point. You have to identify what your weakness is and then find a team that can fill your weakness. If you need outfield help, find a team with excess outfielders. That may mean you only can get Taylor Ward. You may not be able to get Mike Trout or Mookie Betts or Ronald Acuna or one of these guys you dream on. But this other team has got 7 outfielders that are currently in the top 50 in the player rater. Let's get one of those 7 guys to help my team. So find your weakness, then find the team that plays into your weakness. What do they have that I need? Does this work okay? Then you have to take the next step. And the next step is, do I have what they need? If they need pitching help and you have no pitching help to give, what are you going to offer them for Taylor Ward? If you ended up with 4 closers because you grabbed Kyle Finnegan late and James MacArthur off the waiver wire, okay, I can deal a closer. This team needs a closer. Great. I will deal them a closer. Let's look at their outfield. Oh, look at this. They've got 6 outfielders. We only start 4. Maybe I can get an outfielder. Who this group do I like? Where's the fit there? So it's more of a puzzle piece fitting together scenario than it is, I need this player. I'm going to get this player. That's who I want. When you're trying to improve your team, you have to look at it holistically. You have to look at it kind of like we do in spring with the situation with the tiering. You don't have to get player A or player B. You have to get A or B, right? So it's the same thing on the trade market. Identify the positional spot you need help, whether it's a position or category. I should have said that too. Maybe you need outfielders. Maybe you need batting average, right? Identify where you need something. Find a team that has excess batting average or excess outfield in this suggestion or this model we're talking about. Find the team that has excess there and then see where they're weak. Where do they need help? If they need help in the bullpen and you've got extra bullpen guys, great. Let's make a trade. If that team needs starting pitching help and you don't have starting pitching help to give, you got to go to the next team. So I think the biggest problem is twofold. One, people identify the player they want and not just who they're going to get. And two, they don't put themselves in the other person's shoes. What do they need? Everyone wants to win a trade. Okay, no one wants to do a trade and feel like they lost the trade. Everyone looks to be sharp, right? You look to get Nolan Jones, who's down and has got the slow start. You start go Paul Goldschmidt. I'm going to get on the cheap, and I'm going to offer this guy just picked up off the waiver wire last week. Like, people try to do that, and I get it. But there's nothing wrong with a trade where both teams benefit. There's nothing wrong with a fair trade. I call them challenge trades a lot of times when people ask. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're addressing your need. You don't want to overpay, especially at this point of the season, right? But it's okay if you lose the deal 48-52, right? On the surface, wow, you gave up a guy who's a little bit better, but maybe you need an outfielder and you need batting average, and you get an outfielder with batting average in the trade. It perfectly fits your team need, right? So find what you need, consider what the other person has to offer, consider what the other person needs, and then make the trade offer. There's two ways to approach the trade offer too, and I'll get to your comments here in a sec. There's two ways to approach this. One, you could make the offer. Here's my offer, and it's fair and good. What do you think? You could also reach out and say, look, I'm interested in an outfielder. I've got some pitching. I know it sounds like you got some pitching. What do you think? You want to do something here? Ideally, you make the offer, right? Because if you do this nebulous thing, a lot of people don't respond and they don't take you seriously, and they're doing other things. It's really easy for someone to look, oh, there's a trade offer. Let's click on it. Oh, yes, or oh, no. Versus, now I got to look at my team. Now I got to look at his team. I don't have 10 minutes tonight. You know what I mean? So it's usually better to make the offer. Sometimes you end up making an offer that is really good and it's immediately accepted and you feel bad. Don't worry about that. If it's a trade that works for you, it works for you, right? You also don't want to be on the other end of things where you offer some, horrible. You don't offer James MacArthur to somebody and say, look, I know that you got a lot of starting pitching, so I'll give you James MacArthur for Zach Wheeler. Well, then someone's going to spit in your face and never do a trade with you. So don't take it that far, right? But I think it's really effective to make a strong and solid offer, considering your needs and considering their needs. So that's kind of a quick rundown. Happy to answer more questions about this in Discord over at fantasyguru.com. But remember, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Don't get vapor lock in a certain player's name. Realize that we're looking for a group of players that could fit. We're looking for a team model that fits both what we need and what we have to give. Okay, let's look at some of the comments here. Okay. Kane863, 50% off. The VIP plan is 100% worth it. That's kind of like Sex Panther, right? From Anchorman. That's good. VIP 50% off is 100% worth it. Loved it. 863 Kane. Good morning, King. Well, that's not my nickname, but I'll take it. Sure. Thank you. Typical Rob. We've got Doug saying Riley is only 23, Ray. Did I say differently? Oh, if I did, I'm sorry. Riley Greene is in his third season. He was the number one. If I said that, that's obviously a spoken faux pas. He is 23 years old. I don't know why I would have said 27. Maybe I just lost my mind, but I've written around Riley Greene for years, so hopefully everyone knows that. Sometimes people say things. I'm talking here by myself for an hour every day. I'm going to have a slip every once in a while. I don't always need everyone to correct me. It's like when people correct my spelling too. I get it. We're trying to be accurate. Okay. But you don't think I know how old Riley Greene is? Okay. Anyway. Tim Bressler. Morning, Ray. 12-team head-to-head points league. Strand and Arenado got cut. We have Yandy and McMahon at first and third. Would you jump on either or stand pat? In a 12-team head-to-head points league, all four players, Strand, Arenado, Diaz, and McMahon, should be owned. None of them should be on the waiver wire. This is something that, and again, this is really foreign to me, not because I don't get it, but just because the idea, I don't understand how these guys are on the waiver wire. The third hitter for the Reds got dropped. Nolan Arenado, who for the last 3 weeks is hitting 300 with 400 on base percentage. Why are these guys getting cut? Of course these guys should be added. I don't want to cut Yandy Diaz or Ryan McMahon to do it. I guess in the case of Diaz, depending on your setup, Tim, Diaz could qualify at multiple positions and McMahon could qualify at multiple positions. That is useful in any league. It's particularly useful in a head-to-head setup because you don't want to take zeros. You want to maximize plate appearances every day, right? That's the goal. Every plate appearance matters when we're only looking at 7 days. I mean, again, I can't cut Diaz or McMahon because of that fact. I don't want to do it. I think I would prioritize Arenado over Strand. I think that in the case of Arenado, he plays every day and he's really good. He may not be a star anymore. I'm fine with that position, but he's going to, hit 270 with 26 home runs and 95 RBIs. Like, he's going to be really good. I would try very hard to get Arenado on my team, but I don't want to cut either of those two guys to get it done. Doug P, keep up the good work. Thank you. 863 Kane says, so you're saying drop Turnbull after tonight's start? Well, I mean, I've been saying that with Turnbull since the beginning. I mean, I've gone over it in articles and here on the show. Turnbull has done a great job for the Phillies. He's done an excellent job for the Phillies. But where does he pitch once Walker is back? Walker has to be in the rotation. Walker cannot be a reliever at this point. The Phillies could have an injury. The Phillies could decide to go with the 6-man rotation in the short term or even the longer term. That could be, something they decide. But they've got Suarez, who's been dynamite. Nolan, Wheeler, of course. Christopher Sanchez is not leaving the rotation. So if they go with the 5-man, there's no spot for Turnbull. I would try, if I had Turnbull on my team, as I've said all along, to trade him. That's what I would do. Try to trade him to somebody that doesn't believe in Walker or thinks he's going to stick in the rotation, because if you can get a return on Turnbull based upon his performance to date, which is really good, if you can get someone that gives you 90% of that or even 85% of that, I'm trading. Now, again, Walker is kind of wonky. He's been around for a while, and I'm not suggesting he's going to make 25 starts the rest of the way. So there is a chance that Turnbull gets back in the rotation. But also have to understand that Turnbull's pitching over his head too. So it's a double. He's pitching over his skill set, and he's not likely to be part of this rotation long term. So yeah, that's, again, what I basically have said all along with Spencer Turnbull. Kane's 863 says, I'm going to try to stash Taj Bradley. I like that. He's working his way back for the Rays. I'm a very big fan of his skill set. We'll see if he can get healthy and stay on the field. Question from Kane says, when Bradley returns, do you think Littell gets pushed out of the rotation? If we look at the current rotation for Tampa Bay, we see Sean Armstrong, and he's the guy I'm thinking goes. Eflin's in there, Savale's in there, Pepiot, Littell. I think that it's Alexander who goes. Now, that would leave them extremely right-handed, so maybe they don't want to do that. They want to offset these righties with the leftiness of Alexander. But if it was me and I was running this team, and I'm not, my expectation would be that Littell would stay in the rotation and Alexander would be the guy that would then be the bulk starter or the opener, that kind of a thing. So I would expect Littell to remain in the rotation when Bradley returns. Just saw Sixto Sanchez, probable tonight. Any chance he reverts 2020? Asked Mark P. No, I don't think there is. I wish there was. As I've talked about him forever, right? We all know that. You probably know that, Mark. That's probably why you're asking. He's making a spot start here. This is likely to be a one-off. Braxton Garrett is going to ramp up his work in the minors. He's having a minor league start in a couple days. They want Garrett obviously back in the rotation to join Luzardo, Cabrera, Rogers, and Weathers at this point. So I think this is just a one-off with Sixto Sanchez. He's not going to throw enough innings to qualify for a victory, so there's no value to him even in the start today. And it's against Atlanta, so who the hell cares? Like, you can't pitch him in that one. So hey, maybe Sanchez pitches well, and maybe we get an injury to one of these other guys, which have been consistently injury prone, the Marlins pitchers. They're really left-handed heavy with Weathers and Rogers and Luzardo and Garrett, right? So maybe there's a chance later in the year that Sixto Sanchez starts making some starts, but now's not the right time to make a move on Sixto Sanchez. And you got it, Kane, 863 Kane. So there's the show, folks. Thanks for listening today. Remember, you can find us on the social media of the youtube.com/Elite Plus Network. You can find us on podcast networks. Type in Fantasy Sports Daily for all your goodness there. You can find us on the website at the Elite Plus tab at the top. You can find all our podcasts there. One Man's Opinion, Armando Marsal's, Mind of Marsal, Justin Fensterman's Basketball Diaries, this show. You don't have access to all of them because they're not all free, but they're all available there. If you want to get the access, get the VIP Platinum. We got it. We were talking about it earlier. Get you access to freaking everything we got. There it is, man. Promo code 50 special, 50% off the Platinum package. Get you everything, every sport we do. So whether it's audio, visual, articles, Discord, rankings, projections, content, data, all of it 50 special for the Platinum membership over at fantasyguru.com. I'll be on with Jeff Mans in a couple hours on the Elite Sports Show Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'll be on with him today for those 3 hours. I'll also be on later tonight on the Elite Sports Game Time Show with Justin Fensterman. That's 8 to 10 Eastern. I'm going to go post a Rays Ramblings piece here in a bit dealing with isolated power. What is it? Why does it matter? And what can it tell us about the numbers in the early going? It's too early to know for sure, but what information can we pull out of what isolated power points us to? That'll be the focus of my Ramblings piece today. So thanks for listening to the show. Really appreciate it. I'll see you again tomorrow. We're here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on Fantasy Sports Daily at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the morning. I am Ray Flowers. This has indeed been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.